Okay, Brother Kadash, starting off by giving our praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Kadash. This is going to be, Leviticus 19, verse 27. This is the truth, and we're going to be like the Church of Berea here. And we're going to look into the things, the things that we were taught, and we're going to actually look into the meaning of these things and, what these things come from. Now I want to put a disclaimer out there, right? Like, to the point that to the point where you could look up things and you see this happen a lot. You could look up things, the definition of words, and then you could look up history and things like that. Now, just because you look up those things don't mean that that's the truth. Now you could come to a educated conclusion based on or hypothesis or a theory based on things that you're looking up and you're looking at, but it don't necessarily mean it's 100% the truth. So at some point in time, it goes off your faith and what you believe, based on what the Lord has shown you and the things you looked up. It comes down to the faith and what you believe and what you see. It says let every man be convinced. So you got to personally be convinced on these things, so coming into the truth, 9 times out of 10, you are watching or studying in a camp, and you hear them say things and you don't have that much knowledge, so you just go with what they're telling you without ever looking into it and seeing exactly what it is, and I see brothers that still be lost in that, so with Leviticus 19, let's read it. It says, ye shall not round the corners of your head, neither shall thou mirror the corners of thy beard. So, brothers will take this and he'll hear leaders and stuff tell you that this means that you can't get a lineup. Right now, it's right in front of you. It didn't say anything about a lineup. Read it again. Ye shall not round the corners of your head. Right? And we're going to go into what the meaning of that is and the reason why the Lord gave us that law. Right? Now, the corners of your head, it didn't say that you should not get a lineup. Making an assumption, you can make an assumption that ye should not round the corners of your head mean that you should not get lineups. But that's an assumption. That's not based on facts, right? It says, neither should thou mar the corners of thy beard. Now, I want to get it in different translations. And then just to speak on it, cause this how we gonna break it down. We're gonna be like the Church of Berea, and we're gonna go into it, and we're gonna look up what they're saying. Right now, I see brothers, and I was rebuking a brother or like responding to a brother, and some of the scriptures that he was pulling, they have these preconceived notions, they have assumptions about it, but the scriptures that he's pulling don't necessarily say what he's assuming it means, right? Just like when it says, Amos 3 verse 3, how could two walk together except they be agreed? Now, does that mean agreed on everything? Does that mean literally two people can't come together unless they 100% agree on everything? No, it doesn't mean that. So, we make the assumption when it says could two come together unless they agree, it's on like foundational things. Like, okay, really, Yahweh Shai is our Savior, right? And we got faith in Him. And that we are the Israelites and we supposed to keep the law, statutes, commandments. We come together, we gonna have differences on doctrine, but as long as we believe those foundational things, right? Then we can come together. Then then it's not. And then it talks about differences in offices. So we gonna have differences, and anytime you have differences in offices, you have different opinions on things. Just like if you got the military or the Navy, and you got their generals and their leaders. Well, the Navy might say, hey, look, this operation right here, this is a Navy operation. And then the military might say, no, this is a military operation. I think that we should attack this operation this way. And then the Navy might have a whole different way to attack that operation. There's one together that makes up the U.S. Army, but they may have differences. You see what I'm saying? And then that's why you got somebody over both of them that say, nah, let's go with what the Navy said. Or let's go with what the military said. That's what happens with a nation of people. You got different tribes. That's the position King David played when going to war. You have different tribes come to him with different things, right? And then he'll be the one to choose which one to go with. Don't mean that we're separate. We're all still one. We all still could walk together. You know what I mean? But let's get back to this. Now this is Leviticus 19, and we're gonna go in the NIV, New International Version. It says, "Do not cut the hair at the sides of your head, or clip off the edges of your beard." So we're gonna break that down, right? Now you got to remember, it didn't say anything about if you could get a hairline or not. So I always went off the notion that this meant that you can't get hairlines. But I wanted to go into it, break it down, and see the truth for what it is, and not just go off and say, "Well, no, these men told me that it was this, so it has to be that." No, let's just really examine it and let's do some research and look it up. So I read two different versions, and not once did it say that you cannot have a lineup. Now it's talking about the hair at the sides of your head. Now the hair at the sides of your head, I'm kind of jumping the gun because I wanna break it down piece by piece, but it's talking about where your temple is, right? So let's get another version. Your temple in the corners of your head is at the back of your head where it comes down in the corner. Some people call it the lining in the back, right? Now let's go. Another popular version, which is the ESV, English Standard Version. Let's see what that one says. It says, "You should not round off the hair on your temple or more the edges on your beard," right? So now you could take that and say, well, that's just what they're saying. That's what they translated it. That don't mean that that's really what it means, right? But the edges, the temples, we all know where our temples at, right? Now, most of the time when you see brothers cutting the hair at their temple, what is that called? That's called the fade. That's what a fade is. Brothers running around getting fades, they don't even understand the history where the fade come from. So, and I'm gonna come to the conclusion that we came to. It wasn't just me. So it ain't just everything just you and you just in your own mind. No, I talked to brothers and we consult and we examined this together. I talked to a brother. We read it, we examined it, we did our research together, and this is the conclusion that we came to. Not being just brainwashed by what some other man that we looked up to. We actually was like the Church of Berea, looked into these things ourselves, which a lot of brothers don't do. Now watch this. Now, let's look up some meanings, right? Now, this is just pulling different resources, not saying that you have to go with this guy's commentary, but let's go with it. But let's read it for a little bit and see what he came with. He said, "Round the corners of your head." He said, "That is, they are not to shave off the hair around the temples and beyond the ears." So when you go to a barbershop, now I'm going to get pictures, and you get what's called a fade. Where's the origins of the fade? Where does the fade come from? Why do people like this fade look so much, right? Now, look, I'm finna educate y'all on something. I honestly thought that a fade thing was like a black man thing. I honestly thought that. I thought having a fade was a black man have fade. That's a black man thing. That's our shit we do. But I actually been out the country and traveled around, and I seen other nations. They number one haircut was fade, and I said, hold up, they doing this shit like. These people, like, the whole world's influenced by the so-called black man. Don't get me wrong, but these people, they rarely even see black people like that. You know what I mean? When they see me, it was like I was a superstar, like I was like an entertainer or something. Them seeing me just in their country. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell? Like, that's an anomaly. We don't never really see black man like that. But this is something that they were getting. Now, watch this. Now, a fade is what you see when you have hair on top of your head, and then around the temples is lighter, right? Now this is talking about balding it, but and we gonna get into that. But even if you're just lighting the hair, you're not balding it, but it's still the same spirit because you're still getting the same look, and this look was used for a certain thing, which he's about to say. It says, "So as to leave the head bald, except a dish-like turf upon the crown." So when you see a fade, you're lightening, you're You're cutting the hair lower around the temple and then usually behind the ear. That's what they do. They go, they shape you up, get the temple together, and then get around the hair. So what it does is it leaves a patch of hair on top of your head that looks like a circle. Or it looks like what he said, like a turf, just a little turf on top of your head. Now watch this. It says, this was done by the Arabs. So here we is. The fades, this was something that was done by the Arabs. And I'm going to show you why I think it's a fade. It says, and other worshippers of the god Oracle. So this was actually, the fade was actually used, that the Arabs used in order to worship their God. And this is the reason why God gave us this law. Because this goes back to the first law, have no other gods before me. Because he didn't want us worshiping these other gods or doing the customs of the heathens that they did to worship their gods. So it's not just worshiping their gods, but the Lord, our Lord is a jealous God. He didn't want us doing the customs that the other nations did to worship their gods. You see what I'm saying? It says, and other worshippers of the god Oracle. Hence the Arabs are ironically called those with the corner of their hair paw, as is rightly rendered in the margin. So let's go to Jeremiah 9 and 26. So it's actually using the Bible to break down the Bible. So see, as I said, we're not just going to go off his commentary and what he said, but if he's coming with some truth, we're going to be like the church of Berea and we're going to look into it. Egypt and Judah and Edom, and the children of Ammon and Moab, and all that are in the utmost corners that dwell in the wilderness, for all these nations are uncircumcised, and all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in heart. Hold on. I think the other, let me go back. See, and that's how you do it. You research. You go to Jeremiah 27. It's talking about the utmost corners. So let me see. So you got to fact check him. See what he's talking about. So he's pulling these because it talks about the utmost corners, but he's saying that those with the corners of their hair paw. So we need to find that scripture right there. So let's just type it in. Okay, so Jeremiah 9 and 26. I don't know why they see that. It says, why are the Judeans among the nations who cut the corners of their beards? And I'm thinking that those nations was Ishmael, which is the Arab nations. And it's just saying, I don't want to get too much down that hole. But it's just saying, okay, why are the Judeans, we supposed to be separate from these people, why are they among, and it's these certain nations who cut the corners of their beards, right? Which goes back to the rest of that. So it all kind of goes together. Now let's go back to it. Right here. No, let me go back to the verse, right? Okay, but it kind of goes back to the whole, well, it does go back to the whole Leviticus 19:27. The corners of your beards and rounding off your temples, right? The edges of your head, right? So it's showing you that even in the Bible, when we just went to Jeremiah, it's showing you that there was nations that was known for doing that, pawing off the sides of their head and cutting off the corners of their beard in order to worship their gods. So that's why we was given a law not to do that. So now we got to figure out exactly what were they doing. What did it look like that they were doing to worship? So we already set the foundation that this law was given to us so we wouldn't do what the other nations was doing to worship their false gods. So what, now we got to see what exactly was they doing. Because if it's a hairline, then we shouldn't be doing hairlines. If it's just a fade, then we shouldn't be doing fade. But if it's just a fade and it's not a hairline, then you can't use Leviticus 19:27 for hairline. So let's keep going. We just doing research. This is great. See, this is when you're humble and you're not putting you're not man worshiping, and you're not putting your own like notoriety, like you trying to make it seem like you know everything. Like, no, research things. This is great. Learn things. Be open to learn things. So he's just saying that this mentions haircut, but it's really talking about paganism, and this is why the Lord gave us this, right? Because He didn't want us being worshiping these pagan religions, right? Which our people still do to this day, right? It says in context, this passage is saying not to be involved in pagan practices of witchcraft, which I agree. Apparently, the Canaanites would shave around the ears and upper beard. So this was a Canaanite thing and an Arab and Ishmael thing around the ears and upper beard as part of some sort of cultic ritual, right? Around the ears. That's what a fade is, and I'm going to show it to you. Corners of beard seemingly to indicate shaving it partially into a goatee shape. Goatee was popular with Egyptians, see? Because what happened is, so even the Egyptians was doing this, and then, we got the law right after coming out of Egypt, right? So what they would do is like, now the Lord told us we could trim, so we could trim our beard down. We ain't gotta have it like super long, like big, but we could trim it down. But we're not supposed to cut it bald. But see, what brothers would do is they would cut it bald and leave a little strip. That's a goatee. And then you would try to get around it and say, well, I can't cut my beard down. I mean, I can't cut my beard off, so I still got a little line there. I still got a beard. I just cut it down. But the Lord got us either way we go. He got us in the trick bag because you can't get away from it. Now the Lord is saying, look, you can't even cut it down to a goatee. Don't even cut the corners of it. Because if he didn't put that law in there, brothers will be cutting it down to a goatee and still saying they got a beard when all they really got is a little strip of hair that follows the jawline. So you can't have a little strip of hair that follows the jawline. Where your natural beard lining and shape grows to, you have to keep it there. Now you could trim it, right? Now did it say anything about a hair lining? No. You could line it up. You could, because what is lining it up? All lining it up is just you're defining the edge of it more. You're just shaping it. You're not even shaping it because it's still following the natural lining of your beard. All you're doing is lining it up. You're defining it more, right? So it didn't say anything about you can't line up your beard. You can't define the natural line of your beard anymore. It didn't say that. It's saying you can't cut off the corners, and that doesn't mean lining. What that means is that you can't cut it down and bald it to the point where you got a goatee and just a strip of line, or you can't receive back that natural lining of your beard. So that's already one cut. It's not talking about a lining. Now let's keep going. Here, let me go back here. What he was saying. Let's see what some more people was saying. He's talking about Chuck Norris. Right here. So that's one picture. That's one example. Right? And he got Leviticus 19:27. And he has a point, right? Because what is it talking about? Do not cut the edges. Now he went overboard with it and he made a mohawk. So this will be an example of something you can't do, right? Because he bald the edges, which is around his temple, and behind the ear, with your hairline come down to a corner in the back of your head. He cut that corner off. He don't have that corner no more. That would be against Leviticus 19:27. This is an actual picture of what that would look like. What it's talking about. It's not talking about the hairline that's in the front. What it's talking about is not doing this. Now let's keep going. Well, they want me to sign up to do that. So here, let me go to my next. Now look what we have. Now look what we have here. Right? So now this is like a ancient, like I would say, like statue, right? Of a example, whether it was the Arabs, whether it was the Canaanites, whether it was Edomites that was doing this. This is an actual ancient example of a pagan hairstyle that's forbidden in Leviticus 19. So not just a drawn picture. Right? Now, is this just this ain't even got no hair. He ain't even got no hairline. This ain't even got nothing to do with no hairline. His hair is coming over his hairline. You see what I'm saying? But what it's showing you is this is what a fade is. When the corner right there where his temple's at, it's bald. And then behind the ear, where your hair would come down into a corner, a square into a corner, an edge, that's cut off and bald too, where it looks like he has. Now, if you take his head from a bird's eye view and you look down on it, it's going to look like a circle of hair on top of his head because he cut the corners off. That's all it's saying. Don't cut the corners of your hair off to the point where it looks like a circular patch of hair on top of your head. And this is a exact this is the exact example. Matter of fact, I'm gonna screenshot this and try to make this the picture for the lesson. You know, the screenshot for the lesson, because this is 100% the example of what you can't do. So now you got brothers that's in the truth that I done seen that's running around saying, "Oh, you can't get a hairline," but they got fades. So they running around pointing the finger and condemning brothers, saying, "Hey, you got a hairline, and you can't have a hairline," and I've been a part of that. See, that's how humble I am. I'll tell you the truth, because I was teaching what I learned, right? Rather than actually looking into these things. And I'm just so thankful that Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai has opened my eyes so I can actually go and search these things myself and see the truth. And because, man, when you in a cult, or when you in a camp, or when you a part of something and you looking up to man, you can't see it. The Yahweh ben Yahweh followers, they couldn't see it. They really thought, some of them really thought that he was the Lord. They couldn't see it because they was stuck in that. You know, it's different, you know, when you actually in something. Sometimes you can't see it. And the reason why is because of feelings. Even though a lot of them act like a lot of them is really emotional, and it's because of their feelings, right? Respect of persons and fear, right? So that's an example, right? Now I'm gonna give you another example. I'm gonna go to another picture. I want to come back to this picture because I want to go into it so I can read it. But that's the perfect example. So you running around telling brothers, "Hey man, you got a hairline and you going off, but you ain't got no hairline really, but you got a fade though." When in reality, you really the one that's going off. Now let's go. Here's another example of which looks like Egyptian doing it. You see, it's the same thing. It's a fade. Where the edges, where the temples at, where the edges of your hair, that's cut off, that's bald. And then in the back, where the corners come down, that's cut off, that's bald. It's the same thing. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find some more examples. Not here. Let me go back to the example because I want to go into this one and read it. Pagan hairstyle forbidden in Leviticus 19. Who had it? Right? There is a curious law in Leviticus that seems to refer to avoiding an ancient pagan rite. That's what it's about, man. Do not cut the hair at the sides of your head or clip off the edges of your beard. We already know, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that the clip off the edges of your beard is talking about a goatee. It's not well, I guess we all can agree, because it's not talking about lining your beard. It's talking about don't cut it off bald to the point where you got a goatee. And it's the same thing with the hair, right? Because when it says do not cut off the hair at the sides of your head, okay, so what about the hair at the top of your head? What about the lining at the top of your head? Well, it says sides. If we gonna go off what it say for word verbatim, it says sides. It don't say anything about the top of your head. Don't you have a lining at the top of your forehead? It don't say don't cut off the hair at the top of your forehead. Don't cut off the hair on top of your forehead. It don't say that, but that's a part of your lining, right? That's one of the major parts of your lining. It says the side. So even if we just take the scripture verbatim, right, what it says, right, you can't say that this is talking about a hairline because your hairline extends to the top of your head too. And it ain't talking about the top of your head. It exactly said the corners and the sides. So it's clearly not talking about a hairline. It's talking about a fade. What we call today a bald fade. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about, and I'm guilty of it too. You know, it's talking about taking your hair and when you thin it down at the corners where the temples are at, and you thin it down in the back and you cut it or you bald it, it's talking about that. That's actually an ancient pagan ritual, and you don't even know it. It says, those that worship the hosts of heaven in honor of them cut their hair so as that their head might resemble the celestial globe. Because what we say, it looks like a circle on top of your head, right? Let's go. Let me see. It says the Arabians acknowledged no other god but Bacchus and Uranian, but it was another one, Orito, and they say that their hair was cut in the same manner as Bacchus is cut. Now they cut it in a circular form, shaving it around the temples. When you look from a bird's eye view, it's gonna look like you got a circle because you cut off all the edges. Wherever there's edges at, you cut that off, right? And around the temples, where's your temples at? Come on, man. Let me keep going through here because I want to go back. Because I wanna get some pictures. Right? Okay, let me get some pictures. Here's a picture right here. With an Arabian man, do not cut off the hair at the sides of your head or clip off the edges of your beard, right? Because what are you doing? That's a fade. Now it's more aggressive fade, damn near like a mohawk, but he cut the back of it off. But what he's doing is he's trimming, not just cutting it bald, but he's trimming down the edges where the temple's at and where the back is at. That's why they're showing you the back of his head, but he got a large amount of turf type hair on top of his head. Right? Now let's get another one. You see this right here? This isn't just an Israelite thing or a Jake thing. This is the perfect example of what you call bald fade. It's almost like a mohawk, right? A mohawk, the same thing as this, is just thinner, right? But you see where the temples is at, he balded. It's bald, right? And then that goes around the ear, and then behind the head is gonna be bald, and he leaves like a circular. If you look at on top, like his barber looking down, he's gonna see a circle patch of hair on top of his head. That's what it's talking about. Let's get another one. That's what it's talking about when it's saying a circular motion. Has nothing. Your hairline is up here. This is two different things. It didn't say nothing about your forehead. Do not cut a line, make a straight line on your forehead. It did not say that. All it said was don't cut the edges of your beard. So you see his head, his face going into his temple right there. That's basically down there completely bald. He cut it off. And this is the perfect example of the rest of the passage of 19:27, Leviticus 19:27. Because when you look at his hair, you can see the remnants of hair on his cheek, but he cut them off. He balded. And you got to use a razor to do that, to get it that bald, down to like a thin line of hair, which is that's called a goatee. So the Lord told us not to cut that, not to do so. Him right here, he's fully in sin against Leviticus 19 verse 27. He cut the edges of his beard down into a goatee, and he cut the corners of his hair down, right? In the edges, which is in the back, the back of it, all the way down to where there's a circular patch of hair. So he would technically be the Arabs will say that he's paying homage to their false god Oracle. He's paying homage to them, so he would actually be doing a pagan custom right now and sinning against the Lord by doing it. Right? Let's get you some more example. Here's another example. This is what you can't do. You can't do this. A bald fade. You can't do that. You can't do that. We all guilty of this. We all that had this haircut at some point in time. Now this right here, let me see. I hope it don't pull the video up. I just want to see the picture. Now this right here is different. You see, he still has his hair at the corners, at the edges. He still has his hair there. He didn't bald it. He didn't trim it down super low. It's the same level as the rest of his hair. Now he didn't cut off the corners of his beard. He didn't trim his beard down to a goatee. He still has his full beard there, all the way to where it comes up to his natural line. The only thing he doing is making the line sharper. You could do that. You want to know the reason why you could do it? Because where there's no law, there's no sin. And there's no law. And in that law, in Leviticus 19, verse 27, it does not say you cannot line up your head. You cannot line up the hair. It does not say that. It clearly tells you what it's talking about. We're going to go back to it. So this will not be against Leviticus 9, even though this is what we're taught, coming to the truth that this is against Leviticus 19:27. This is not against Leviticus 19:27. Now wait. So if you trying to figure out what Leviticus 19:27 is talking about, this is your example right here. Go to this and see, but you could just type in bald fade, because this is the same thing as a bald fade as we just showed you. The hair around the back. I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but this is your example. That's an actual statue of what it actually looked like in history, in the past. So this is what you can't do. This ain't got nothing to do with a hair lining. This is actually going into where the hair sits and balding it and cutting it off. to pay homage to false gods. That's the reason for it. Because you got to ask yourself, when you read that, you say, you gonna ask yourself, you gotta ask yourself like the Church of Berea, well, why? You going a lot of brothers gonna say, well, why don't the Lord want us to have hairlines? It's the Lord ain't gonna give us a law just for no reason. Well, I just don't want you to have a hairline is because I said I just don't like how it look, and I just don't want you to have a hairline. That's not how the Lord works. He given us these laws for reasons. The laws have reasons and meanings behind them. It's not just because, well, I'm God and I said so and I just don't want you having it. No, it's reason and meaning. The dietary law is reasons why he say don't eat catfish. Well, it don't necessarily say that, but you can't eat catfish. Or don't eat pork. It's reasons why we can't eat swine. Not just because the Lord, well, I just don't like pigs. No, it's a reason why he's telling us that. So what's the reason why we can't have hairlines? You see what I'm saying? That don't make no sense, but when you really look into it and you see that it's more of a bald fade, and then you say, well, what's the reason why we can't have bald fades? Well, then you see, okay, this goes back to pagan customs that the heathen was doing, that the Egyptians was doing. Remember, we got this law when we came right out of Egypt. Now, you might go and say, well, the Egyptians had hair linings too. That was one of their customs. But in Leviticus 19:27, it didn't say anything about a hairline. The word hairlining is not in there. And it very well could have been in there. It's not in there. It clearly told you what it was saying. The corners and the edges. Matter of fact, we're going to go to it. But this is the perfect example. So having Leviticus 19:27 is talking about having a bald fade. That's what we call it today, a bald fade. Right? It's just not going to say that in the Bible because they wasn't using that terminology. But it's talking about a bald fade. It's not talking nothing about a hairline. It's talking about bald fade. Now watch this. Ye shall not round the corners of your head. No, ye shall not get a hairlining. Don't say that. No, ye should not straighten out your forehead lining, your hairline. It don't say that. It says ye should not round the corners. What's the corners? This is what always made me smart. Even like in a young age in that school, it's something called critical thinking. A lot of brothers lack critical thinking. You know, that's why being a prophet and being a teacher of the truth ain't for everybody. Because you may want to come into the truth, right? And you may be a good brother. And see, some offices is for brothers to just exhort brothers and give brothers faith and be around and be a good brother. It ain't for everybody to be a prophet, man. Because you have to have something called critical thinking. That's what my next lesson should be on. Critical thinking, and that's a gift that's given to people. Gift ain't given to everybody. Like when you look at boxing, right? When they talk about a boxer's IQ, what they're really talking about is a boxer's intelligence, but it's really talking about a boxer's ability to critical think, right? So he's going to throw this left punch, then he's going to throw a right one, and then I already know he's going to throw an uppercut after that. That's critical thinking. You're thinking ahead of time. You're looking deep into things. So when you get a really good IQ, you can see things coming. That comes from that critical thinking skill, and that's a gift that's not given to everybody. Don't make you lesser or better just because you got it. It's just that's a gift that's given to certain people. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to critical think to break down these scriptures, and it's not given to every man, right? And you shouldn't try to force yourself if you're not a critical thinker and that gift wasn't given to you. You can't try to force yourself to be that because it wasn't given to you. You know, so sometimes you got to come with a different office and whatever your strength is, you know, contribute that, right? But when it says, so this is how I do things, I break things down. When it says, ye should not round the corners, what does corners mean? What is this? What is the meaning when it's saying corners? Does that just mean the edge? Does corners mean the edge? No, it does not. Does that just, what does it mean, like the edge in a way of like hairlining, I guess? Because you could say edge because it's the edge right there where your temple's at. But when it says corners, does it mean hairlining? No, it does not mean that. It's talking about at the temples, at the corners. That's the corner of your head. And when you cut that off today, we call that a bald fade. And then when it says, and then the other corners, so you have the corners right there at the temples, and then you have corners in the back of your head. Your natural hairline come down to a corner on both sides. When you cut that off, and you cut off right there up to the ear, and you cut off that temple right there, that's a bald fade. That's pagan worship. It says, "Neither should thou mar the corners of thy beard." What is that talking about? What does the word corners, when it says corners of, and we already got the other translations, right? When it says corners of thy beard, what is it talking about? Is it talking about just the lining of your beard? No, that's an assumption. It's talking about you can't cut the corners of your beard down to the point where you got a goatee, and we showed you many examples. Now watch this. So I'm already one step ahead of you, cat guys that swear up and down the hairline. I'm already one step ahead of you. So let's go to where all y'all go to. Bible Blue Letter. We went to Leviticus 19. We went to the Strongs. We went to 27, and this is the word that comes up, which is H6285, right? And pay out, right? Now let's see what it's talking about. Direction or region, right? So you could say, well, direction mean this is where the direction of your hair is going. Say where your direction of your hair is pointing. Still not talking about lining. It's just talking about the direction where your hair is pointing. But it's talking about a region. What's a region? Your temple region. That's where the corner is, right? Because right here it says corner. Well, the top of my forehead where my lining is at, that's not the corner. What's the corner? Where the temple is at. The end. Right? Now you might say, well, the end, that means the lining, because the lining is the end of your hair. Right? But the lining could be the beginning of where your hair starts. At the same time, but look, it gives you more insight. Quarter. What's a quarter? A side. What's a side? Well, a side is the side of your head, the side of the back of your head, the corners, the temple. That's what was given to us. You could take that and say was talking about something else, right? But that's what, after all the breakdowning, after all the pictures that was shown, the ancient pictures, the modern day pictures, after all the commentaries, after all the different translations, this is what we're coming to, right? Now it says biblical usage: corner, edge, side. The top of my forehead where my lining's at is not the side of my head, or my hair, right? Well, number one, corner. Well, the top of where my forehead at, that's not the side. The back of my head where my hairline come down to the bottom, that's not the side of my hair. So what if I get the back of my hairline and I get that lined up? This says side. That's not the side. So am I sin when it comes to Leviticus 19:27? No. What if I go to the top of my forehead and I get that lined up? Am I a sin when it comes to Leviticus 19 verse 27? No, because Leviticus 19:27 is clearly telling you the side. The side. It didn't say the top of the forehead. It didn't say don't line up. It says don't cut the corners. The side. That's where the temple at. Right? Let me see if there's any more. Side. Part cut off. Corner, side, part cut off. It's telling you the corner. So you got to deal with that. You can't use Leviticus 19:27 anymore to say you can't get a hairline, or you're just reading to the text. Let's go. This is really super. A quarter of the heaven wind, so-called four winds. Let me see. Right here, number 3 says a corner. Then it's saying like a corner of a field. It says a side. Then it says a region. Right? It's just giving you some examples. Right? And thou shalt not make it in 4 rings of gold, and put the rings in the 4 corners that are on the 4 feet thereof. So this is Exodus 25:26. It's I believe it's talking about the Ark of the Covenant, that are on the 4 feet thereof. But it's clearly talking about a corner, something that's on the edge, not the whole thing. Like if you take a table, you got a lining of that table. It's not talking about the whole lining of the table. It's talking about the corners. The corners of the table are the 4 corners that's on the table. We understand the difference. It's not talking about the whole lining of the table. Just like when Leviticus 19:27 is not talking about the whole lining of your head. It's just simply talking about those corners, those temple parts in the back and the front. And there's a reason behind it. So this is giving you some examples, right? The north, it says the tabernacle. It says, and for the second side of the tabernacle, on the north side, there should be 20 boards on the north side. So it's showing you a side is an actual, there's a north side, a south side, an east side, a west side. It's not talking about the outline of something. It's talking about the actual side of something. It's giving you examples of what a side is, what it means when it says a side, and it's using the Bible to do it, precept upon precept. So we come to the conclusion that Leviticus 19:27 is not talking about a hairlining, right? Maybe you could pull a different scripture that is. I don't know. You got to show me, right? But as far as Leviticus 19:27, that's talking about what we call today a bald fade. That's talking about do not cut off the edges of your. Let me go back to it. Right here. Do not cut off the edges where the temple is at and bald at. And the same thing with in the back. And then don't cut your beard down to a goatee and cut off the natural hairline of your beard. And do not have that circular hair motion on top of your head, because that's a pagan worship, and that's the reason why the Lord gave us that law, to not do that, so we can only worship him and not worship the pagans. Case closed, man. Leviticus 19:27 breakdown. Salvation to the U.S.